Welcome to this week's episode of Success in Women. I'm Linda.
I'm Andrea.
And today we're going to be talking about the silver linings. But before we get into that, Andrea's got her tip of the week.
Well, I'm going to share this tip because obviously not everybody knows. I knew, but my daughter didn't know. So if you have a cast iron pan or pot that you use, which I have a few that I absolutely love to use cast iron. So I had put it on the side of the sink to clean it. My daughter goes to the sink and she starts to try, almost pump soap in it. And I was like, no. She goes, what? I said, you never put soap in a cast iron pan. She says, well, how do you clean it? I said, you take the coarse salt, which I have tons of coarse salt. You throw it in your pan. I take a paper towel and I just scrub it around. And when everything's kind of loosened up and gone, you rinse it. You know, you make sure you throw that salt out and everything that goes with it. And then you just dry it with a paper towel. And if you like, and if you want to keep it from rusting, you can put a few drops of oil in it and then rub it in and then put it back to where mine is constantly on top of my stove because I'm always using it. So just for the younger generation, do not put soap in a cast iron
or
pot.
Stick in a soapy hot sink.
Exactly.
It's funny you mention it because from many years ago, I remember using cast iron, and we didn't even have Google.
My mother always used cast iron.
But we didn't have Google back then. I don't know how we knew that, though. I always knew about the salt.
Must have been from our parents, because my mother only had that's what they had, cast iron frying pans.
Yeah.
I don't remember any other kind of frying pan, do you? We didn't have Tefal.
No, we didn't have those, but I know we would have had the stainless steel.
Maybe,
because those were hard sometimes when
they're horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
For frying eggs and stuff.
Yes. No, my mom constantly, it was a cast iron frying pan.
Oh. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the silver linings because, you know, a lot of us go through many things in our lives. And a lot of times if you look back, you can actually see that something good came from something bad.
Right.
And when you talk about, you know, what's happening in the world today, and a lot for the last, you know, few months, it's been about P.Diddy, Sean Combs, and of course, Justin Bieber's name keeps coming up, and because he was one of the younger people that got caught up in this web of things that were happening. But there's a silver lining to even that. And as much as maybe at the time when all this was going down, he might have even been feeling like his life was coming to an end.
Well, he went through a really bad time because, you know, he got into the drugs, he got into the alcohol, his performances were suffering, his life was suffering. And it took him a while to get back on track. And I attribute that a lot to Baldwin, his new wife.
Yes, Haley.
Haley, that's her first name, yeah, Baldwin. And that she got him into Christianity.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, Andrea, while I was on my cruise recently, I actually watched a YouTube video where I think his name is Stephen Baldwin, the father. And he was saying because he was being interviewed on some podcast, and he was saying that he was the one who originally introduced his daughter when the kids were young. There was some event, and he actually introduced Haley to Justin Bieber. And then they didn't meet up again for a number of years later.
Wow.
But what was
did not know that.
Yeah. So what was interesting, and this was all coming out of Steve's mouth, and what was interesting is that he was saying they're a very Christian family. And when you say about, you know, her influence, it had to have been because he loved her so much, and he was going through so much, I'll say, trouble. But I'll say even the family ethics and morals that she grew up in and was still part of, that when she introduced, I'll say, her family, and they just, you know, welcomed him.
And he was open to it.
Very open to it. It made all the difference because you were telling me recently about something that in all this tragedy that's been happening to him, about all that good stuff that's coming out, that he's going to be almost like the second coming.
Yeah, I know, like he's really into worship leading now, and he's writing lots of music, singing, and a lot of his lyrics are what happened in his life, and that he's praising God now for his change. And they're saying, like on internet, that he's going to become like one of the world's biggest worship leader. Yes. Yeah. And the kids are following him and loving every minute of it. So,
well, he's such a young person still, and he's turned his life around.
Yes, and this is his big silver lining, and silver lining for a lot of young people.
Yes.
You know, that are going to be changed by this, influenced by this.
Yeah, hopefully, because it's easy to get caught up on the drinking, the partying, the drugs, but that's not a good path to be going down.
No.
And he got to see, I'll say, both sides. And now he's realizing this nice, wholesome life and family that he has. He's got a new baby, you know, that he's absolutely in love with.
Yeah.
It's changed and made such a difference in his life. And she has had such a good influence. And I'm glad that she had such strong family values that she could, you know, I'll say easily impart, because she comes from such a loving family. And now to bring Justin into this. And I'm not saying his original family wasn't loving, because I don't know anything about them.
I know his mother was, but I don't think his father was in the picture.
But it was just because of what happened to him at such a young age, where he literally could have been derailed for the rest of his life. And been one of the tragic stories instead of one of the inspiring stories.
Exactly. God had a plan.
God had a plan. And it was nice that he got touched. And they always say a lot of times is that you don't always understand at the time your plan, but there is a plan for you. And when you're open to it, it'll come at the right time.
And that's the key, to be open and to accept it, because good things can be put in your path, and opportunities can be put in your path. But if you just go, nah, can't be bothered. Nah, not for me. You miss out, you lose, and your chance is gone for that success or health, whatever, you know.
Well, because really, you could be finding yourself dead at a very young age just because of the bad decisions that you've made.
Exactly.
And so it's good from somebody who went on that one side, like a nice, good little kid, to going and be corrupted by, I'll say, bad influences around him, to now having somebody of a really positive influence. And it wasn't just her, but it was the whole family embracing him.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when Stephen told the story, he goes, you know, like when they were going to be getting married, because Justin asked permission and everything else. And he was saying, yeah, it won't be your problem if you don't treat my daughter right.
Yeah.
It'll be Uncle Alex. Because Uncle Alex will take it into his own hands, kind of thing. And you don't want to mess with Uncle Alex.
No, yeah. Especially after the scrutiny he's been under.
Yeah. But it was just nice, even though it was sad and just. Yeah. It was just the idea, but it was such a loving, tight family.
Right.
That was what he was marrying into. And he didn't corrupt the daughter. She was able to influence, because it can go either way.
I know, and I say that all the time. Like, a lot of times, like, it's like with, you know, driving. So I consider my husband a very bad driver. Like, not bad as, you know, it's just like he doesn't use a signal light, or he doesn't do complete stops. You know, I hope no cops are listening. And I'm the opposite, you know, I signal, even if I'm going in my driveway, whatever.
I know, me too.
And then I go with my daughters, and they all drive like him. And, well, Dad drives. Yeah, but I don't. So why do you
pick the bad habits?
The bad habits instead of the good habits, you know? So like you say, it could go either way. Yeah. One could be influence the other to the bad side.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I remember watching both the Elvis movies, like the one that was, you know, on him that we all went to see together. And then on the ship, I think it was, I got to see Priscilla's version called Priscilla. Now, the movie wasn't as good as, I'll say, the Elvis one, because I really, really enjoyed it. But I liked seeing the movie from her perspective.
Right.
But the whole idea that I took from that, like, because Elvis was very much into religion. He was very much into the gospel singing and everything else. But unfortunately, he got influenced by the wrong people. One major influence that really, you know, got him away from the person that he should have become.
Should have become, yeah.
And he would still be alive probably today.
He would be, because he was very unhappy.
Yeah.
You know, with, you know, the choices that
unfortunately
Tom Parker made for him, you know, that he, you know, because of his bad background, and he wanted to keep his hold on Elvis, you know, he told him all kinds of lies and all kinds of things to keep him. And ultimately, I think that that's what killed him in the end, you know, that he was just so unhappy that he started to use the drugs and the this and the that, you know. Well,
and also because of the shows, he had so much commitment on doing the shows, and that was, again, just to line somebody else's pocket.
Right.
That wasn't what was the most important for Elvis, and he couldn't even share, I'll say, his musical talents around the world because he couldn't leave the States because, again, of other influences. But see, this is the thing. And you can be influenced in a good way or a bad way. You can have a bad thing happen and you can find the good and get yourself out of it.
Right.
But again, like Andrea mentioned, you got to be open to it. This is really important.
Right.
So if you're not open, you can fall by the wayside. And like with Elvis, you know, he's dead in his 40s.
Right.
And Justin was very close to, you know, having bad things happen if he kept on that path.
Right.
But he saw now the silver lining of all that he went through. And now he's such a great influence for other people. And like you said, young people, I think he's also going to be an influence for older people that could be on the wrong path. Or the parents that will understand now, maybe their kids, you know, getting them back on track. Because things happen, you know, all the time.
Yeah. And, you know, like you say, nobody goes untouched. You know, things happen.
To all of us.
To all of us. And like our friend Marie always says, it's figure outable. You have to figure out, you know, what to do about the problem, what you're going to do about it. Like this week is All Souls Week. And we've all lost people. We've all had tragedy happen. But there are so many people out there that I'm so inspired by that out of tragedy, they say their child committed suicide or drug overdose or drinking and driving. They turn those tragedies into something really good. They start a community they go around speaking to other parents or other kids, or they open up programs where people can get the help they need. So they took their grief, and instead of wallowing in it, they turned it into, you know,
a new passion.
And it's a silver lining for them. It probably saved their life. And so many others that they don't even know how many people they've influenced. So, and also with donating, like donors that, you know, like a lot of people get comfort when if a loved one dies, that they, you know, donate their heart, their eyes, or whatever. They get, it's a silver lining for them because they feel like their person lived on. And the person receiving it, you know, is benefits from your silver lining.
And that's the thing, but that's their silver lining as well. You know, because they went through a lot, but they went for a reason, and they understood now by getting, I'll say, if it was one of the, you know, donated organs or something, that it gave them another chance. But it also gives them another chance to tell a story. And that story can pay it forward for other people to do these nice things. Because, again, like you said, Andrea, we all go through some tragedies in our life. And one of the things that like happened to me when I was a teenager, of course, my father passed away at a very young age. He was only 50. But when you lose a parent that early in your life, you got to take something good. And my father was all about family. Loved our family, in the sense that like he would have tons of kids if they could just, you know what I mean? Like, especially when my younger sister was born, because she was the cutest baby.
Yeah.
And
she still is.
And she still is. And she's still the baby of the family.
Yes.
But the thing is, it's one of those things where that meant so much. And for me, it's why I try to keep, you know, and through Cindy a lot, because she is the one the glue that keeps the family together. But to remember that because these were important things to my dad, and losing him. But also when I chose my career path, going so I can help other families, because my dad didn't think he was going to die so young.
Of course not.
And didn't believe in certain things that he should have done to protect the family, that now I can try
financially,
financially, to go and influence and help other people, make sure that they do the right things, because I saw what it did to my mom and the struggles that it ended up, you know, having for my mom. But it also, in that silver lining, made my mother a stronger person.
Yes.
And she learned so much, because my mom originally was very dependent on my dad, not just for the income, but for everything. My dad took care of paying the bills and doing everything.
In the 50s and 60s, that's what they did. That's what they did.
But she had to learn.
Also, right.
Yeah. And she had to learn how to do that. And when she passed away at the ripe old age of 92, she was very good with handling money. Wow. And I have to give her credit, because she only learned, really, even though she was in her early 40s when he passed, she had a lot of failures up until she was in her 50s before she really clued in. This is what she needed to do to financially put herself in a better position.
Right.
And she did. And that was the silver lining for her. Yeah. Because it's tough when you're, you know, widowed at such a young age.
And you're pushed into a situation so young, and you don't have the tools.
Nope.
And back then, they sure didn't have the groups they have now.
That's true.
That you can go run and get help, and all these online
support
communities and stuff. They didn't have none of that.
No.
And we were in a very small little town.
But you know, one of the other things that happened, and you know, considering we were in a small town, my mom, of course, my younger sister was only 4 years old when my dad died. Wow. But I found that the neighborhood really came together to help raise Cindy, in the sense that my mother wasn't totally alone. Right. And that was a really good thing.
One thing about our town, all the women were very close. Yeah. They all kind of worked at the hall at one time or other. We had one hall where all the weddings were and that, and they all cooked. They all did their Tupperware parties and things like that. So I remember my mom having a real good core group of women friends that, you know, they helped each other. Yeah. And support each other quite a bit, because I'll tell you, my mother didn't like the fact that she had to live up in that little town, you know, coming from, she was from Nova Scotia, but she lived in Truro, which is was like the big city at that time. She worked for the newspaper and the whole bit, and then be thrown up there, and yeah, she was
and then
not
she
a
didn't
happy
work for
camper.
Years either.
No, she didn't work for a long time. Well, 6 kids, right? Like boom, boom, bang. Yeah. But once she started working at the hall, that made all the difference for her, you know.
Yeah, and again, that moving to this small town was her silver lining in the end. In the end. Because she had the big group of friends. Yeah. She got a job, but she had a different life after, you know. And so as much as it was a bad thing that happened, a good thing came of it.
And then she had all of us that took care of them right to the bitter end, her and my dad, you know, so. Yeah.
But I remember even recently hearing about Richard Branson, and he was dyslexic, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But they see things backwards, okay? And so growing up, it was a challenge, you know, to get educated and stuff, because the schools didn't understand that back then. But once he got diagnosed, I mean, look at Richard Branson today. Everybody knows he's like one of the greatest businessmen out there. He's got all kinds of businesses, but he's also now going to start a school for other children that are dyslexic.
Perfect.
Yeah. And again, you see, there is a silver lining. So he might, and his parents might have been feeling challenged for a long time. Oh, sure. Can't figure out what's going on, thinking the kid is stupid, you know, all of these things.
Well, and they all got labeled back in our day.
They did. They did have labels. And again, you look back and that silver lining. And, you know, when we talk about, you know, God has a plan, and you don't have to be religious. It can be whatever it is that you believe in. But since Sandra and I are spiritual, we do believe God has a plan for us.
Yes.
But he has a plan, and he had a plan for Richard because, again, coming from where he came from, when people thought he probably wouldn't even get a job as a busboy kind of thing because they thought he was stupid, to not only being one of the best and most famous business people, but now to be able to recognize... One of the richest men in the world. Well, yes, for sure, one of the richest. But now to be able to use all of these experiences and open up the school to help other people, because those people have a talent that other people don't have, that are not dyslexic.
Exactly.
So, you know, you can imagine how you put these people together. Wow. The things that you can accomplish.
Right.
So,
and that's the thing. You always have to look for a silver lining. There's one. There is one.
Yes.
It may be small.
And it doesn't feel like it sometimes.
It doesn't feel like it. And then sometimes it's not revealed to you right away.
Yes.
It might be down the road. You say, oh, wow, thank God that, you know, that didn't happen. Or thank God that happened.
That did,
now,
yes.
You know, you didn't get the house you wanted to buy. You know, you didn't marry the man you thought was going to be your husband. Down the road, you're going to look back and say, oh.
Did I dodge that
Did I dodge a bullet? You know, so there's always a silver lining to be had.
Yeah.
And you need to look for it.
You do. You do. So we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Success in Women. And if you did,
like,
share,
and please subscribe.
Don't forget, we need those thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Until next week, ladies.
Have a great week.
And don't forget, find us on a podcast on Spotify.
Yes.
Just in case you can't watch.
Yes.